What job do you think is so overpaid? In college I house sat often for a little whiner dog in a pretty fancy house. Being in college, I usually napped during any free time, so the dog would sleep on my chest when I lay on the floor to sleep. His mother typically paid me at least $100 for maybe 4 to 6 hours of sitting every time. HR gets paid pretty well for what they actually do. Data scientist in big tech boohoo, especially product analytics side instead of ML focused, not nearly as technically demanding as software engineering and not as taxing on time as product management, but paid in the same ballpark. Plenty of other roles careers bring a relevant skill set, so it's doable to break in easy 200-300K plus for 30 hours week. I'm in the analytics space, so I get what you mean about being paid in the same ballpark. I will say the company, business line where you do analytics matters a lot in this regard, so being close to revenue generating teams is key. Previously worked at a global leading hospitality company doing analytics and was working crushing hours to advance on top of endless work. 60 hours plus per week and $115,000 total comp. Now I work for a major health insurance carrier doing exactly the same kind of work I did before, with rarely a day more than 8 hours, fully remote, and $163,000 total comp. After my merit increase in a few weeks it'll be $174,000 total comp. 200-300K for a data scientist? I'm guessing they would have to be seasoned and highly skilled to land anywhere close to $300,000. A quick search brings up an average salary of $152K for data scientists at Google, which is still substantial but pretty far off from the range you posted. I work at a university in what I consider a decent position with good pay. When COVID first hit, our vice chancellor announced that he would be taking a voluntary pay cut that year to help the university in this difficult situation. His pay cut was almost equal to my entire salary. When COVID first hit, our vice chancellor announced that he would be taking a voluntary pay cut that year to help the university in this difficult situation. His pay cut was almost equal to my entire salary. Oh wow, a 10% pay cut. Very generous of him. No, I completely agree. I was also thinking of how the efficiency over time can only increase with permanent staff. Anyone who has worked any job at all with sufficient complexity can tell you that you improve by leaps and bounds over the months and years. Churning through travel nurses and paying them $200,000 a year rates just to have them leave before they've really settled in defies all reason. As a lower-level nursing assistant, I feel this. My pay is like $17 an hour, and sometimes I feel like, why do I even bother? I don't feel like I'm valued as a person from anyone but the patients. Management just use us as a cheap way to fill in a time slot, and that's about it. I could probably work at Target for the same pay with less work, and retail is a lot of effing work. Hospital CEOs. And actually almost all hospital upper management. There are so many layers of management that many of them barely step foot into a healthcare facility ever, let alone ever speak to a patient, yet all of them make 6, 7, 8-figure salaries plus mega bonuses. My hospital network CEO makes $11 million salary not including bonuses, which bothers me, but bothers me even more are all the board members and shit directly under him making nearly as much. It's hundreds of millions of wasted money paid to the people trying to screw staff out of good pay and screwing patients into paying big bills. This applies to university administrations too. They're constantly making up new positions with 6-figure salaries while raising tuition. The problem with university and hospital pay is both the same. They both get a lot of money from government, directly or indirectly, so they can just keep raising costs, and they are both seen as necessities. Any talk of cutting costs doesn't make you look fiscally responsible. Most people just assume you want people to die and be uneducated. Until we fix that misconception, we will continue to see extremely overpaid professions in both those areas. I'm not going to defend university administrators too ardently, but there is a major difference of scale between 7 and 8-figure salaries and administrators earning 6-figure salaries. I'm not that bothered by a provost or a dean of students earning $150,000, I am bothered by one or the medical equivalent earning $1,500,000. Also, at least within my own university, I can tell you what most of the administrators do. It's a lot. Again, not millions worth, but $100,000 to $250,000 is pretty reasonable for the scope of tasks and issues like legal compliance they constantly have to deal with. They actually did a 60 Minutes episode about the nonprofit healthcare giant that basically runs the medium-sized town I grew up in. The CEO is a boss who's paid millions of dollars a year. They have offshore bank accounts, and while they rank as one of the filthiest hospitals in the entire country, their crooked billing racket is a well-oiled machine. They've hired thugs to harass former doctors and surgeons who spoke out against some of their corrupt practices. They paint themselves as the saviors of the region, with a fully staffed, in-house marketing department, when all they are is a substandard and grossly overpriced money-grabbing machine that preys on people reeling from health crisis and grief. It's disgusting, and they are mostly despised by the city that they hold strong political power over, using teams of lawyers to go after any competitor that dares to provide patients any option other than them alone. School administration boards. Teachers do the heavy lifting, yet a lot of these bodies routinely deduct their pay for resources for the school. Why is it that these academic politicians make more money than the people teaching our future? There would be no school without teachers, but there can be a school without administration bodies, so it has been brought to my attention that not all administrative setups are as unbalanced, primarily with a lot of comments bringing up how they or someone they knew were unpaid or paid more fairly. To those people, thank you. I hope we could all take notes on how to run a school. If teachers were treated the same as how your establishments functioned, we wouldn't have such a shortage of teachers in America. The district I work for has 11 people in leadership positions, all making $150K or more to market their own jobs to make themselves appear useful. In 5 years of teaching, I have never been helped or understood why we need such a huge amount of central office staff. Meanwhile, while these bodies have so much employment and employees, counselors on campus often have to do tasks outside of their expertise because there are not enough staff members to fulfill these roles. A teacher and a counselor do not need to advertise themselves as useful because the professions are scientifically proven to be beneficial to society at large. Hospital administration. They make way more than most doctors. Some data reports show an average salary over $1 million. Over the last 20 years, their salaries have increased 2,000% compared to doctors' pay barely keeping up with inflation. They work way less than the doctors most heavily supporting their salary, although they have 5+ years less education than doctors. Administration also gets to tell doctors what to do, which seems f***ed up considering they have zero education in medicine. Not to mention they don't have to deal with the emotional suffering that comes with being a physician. Last but not least, doctors personally can get sued and have to constantly worry about losing everything while administrators do not. Salt is on the table. My old job. It was for the government setting up audio-visual equipment. I literally got paid to sit on my ass and do absolutely nothing for around $30 an hour. Maybe a good 20 to 30 minutes out of the day on average I would be on my feet doing something. Usually I was just watching videos on YouTube or doing things on the computer. I could literally leave and no one knew I was gone. I would George Costanza it up and sleep under my desk. Yes, it sounds great, but I was extremely undervalued as an employee, and my supervisors, aside from one who was absolutely awesome, really could care less about me. Also, the other employees in the building thought that we were stupid, so they always looked down on us. Sometimes I would have to sit in this dark room which had a computer, but it was very depressing. I finally changed jobs a couple of years back for something more challenging and rewarding. I can finally say that I am in a position where my input is valued and I am really accomplishing something. Every day brings something new and I am pleased with my current compensation. P.S. I was also a very heavy drinker back then, so my old job was perfect for those rough mornings or if I was still a little juiced up from the night before. I know it sounds terrible, but I got sober and things changed for the better. I am a handyman that charges $50 per hour with a 3 hours minimum. A couple months ago I got a call for service that consisted of changing 9 smoke detector batteries, 2 light bulbs, and rehanging a picture. I felt bad taking the money, but the guy couldn't have been happier to have that stuff finally done. He asked for my card and is now a very good client. Here's how it goes in my country: best football player, enough to have money to burn; best surgeon, not enough to be the sole provider for the family; one wife, one child; best teacher, has to look for discounted food. Get a government job. I know a dude who gets paid to do nothing. Like literally browses Reddit for 8 hours and goes home. The pay isn't fantastic, but it's above a living wage salary though. He's not a slacker either, he wants to work, he keeps asking for work. One time he was spoken to about staying late for work and was told basically, hey, don't ruin this for us by working so hard. But his hours are 8 to 4 and it was 1 p.m. They just expected him to be shitty and not come back after lunch? It's soul crushing, but certainly leagues better than many jobs out there paying the same or less. Since we're talking athletes, I'd say the sports teams' owners are way overcompensated. Just as one example, owners often blackmail cities into paying for new stadiums with tax dollars rather than making those renovations themselves. One night I babysat 3 kids for about 2 hours or so. The kids went to bed when I got there, and the parents had left dinner out for me. So all I did was eat their food and watch their TV and pet their dogs. When they got home, the mom paid me $100. I told her that was way too much. She slurred, "Don't worry about it, I'm drunk." And then I noticed her fly was down. So that was the most overpaid job ever, lol. I have only bartended once, filled in at the last second at a busy corporate event for a friend who was an event planner. All 3 bartenders who were supposed to be there were all riding together and got into a car wreck on the way. I hardly knew how to make anything. Spent all night looking up drinks on my phone and apologizing to people. Several helpful people walked me through how to make stuff, and several times everyone was like, yeah, just make 20 of those, we'll all take them. I was grateful it was an open bar, didn't have to track people's tabs or anything. They started a tip jar for me and everyone must have felt pretty sorry for me, because to this day it was the most money per hour I've ever made by a wide margin. What do you mean you get paid $72 an hour to pour drinks? As a cook in a skeleton crew that actually gets a decent tip out from FO, I can confirm that $72 an hour for a bartender in an equally short-staffed place checks right out. Depending on where one works, bartending can be an extremely lucrative career. When I bartended, there were some days, like big events or live music, where I would average about $50 an hour with tips. Oh yeah, I can confirm this. I never did the bartender thing, but while working as a server in a very busy and popular restaurant in a city, I was making $80K a year and only working 3 or 4 days a week tops for 9-hour shifts. I know the bartenders there were making even more than me for sure. My friend is a bartender right now in a super small town dive bar in my town. Sis walks out of her shifts with like $500 to $600 cash most weekend nights. On top that is still being paid $7 hourly. On a busy night she can see $900, $1,000 tips. This is like a small, local, sports bar. People get drunk and just throw their money away, haha. Money is the best way of showing appreciation. Sometimes people take it as you're buying the person off, but if the person is decent enough to interact with, what's better than cash? He respected your time and paid you accordingly. Now you have no problem being there for him. Imagine if jobs were like that. Instead of, without mentioning pay, how can we improve your job? Even they know the answer. As a parent, they didn't pay you $100 for 2 hours of work. They paid you $100 for peace of mind and security, knowing that their children are safe while getting a much needed night out. It is ridiculously hard to find someone who you fully trust, and when you find someone who you can fully trust, other people probably trust them too and are willing to pay more.
Consider subscribing this video if you enjoyed and wish to see more. Thanks for watching.